This is a decade late, literally. This is a video where I expect you to listen to a nobody like me talk about a game that came out 10 years ago. This pilot episode is featuring Battlefield Bad Company.
So, Haggard had pretty much single-handedly invaded a neutral country. Not the best move.
Is this your idea of fun, Haggard?
Well, yeah.
May I ask you why?
The gold! Didn't you see it? I mean, Sweetwater can never swallow a piece that big.
Just shut it, Hag. Give me one good reason that I should not send your ass to jail.
Well, because you love me, Sarge. In a plutonic way.
With a born day of June 23rd, 2008, the same day I discovered M&M Blizzards in a rundown Dairy Queen in PP, Ohio. Real town, real story. It's also the same day Cage the Elephant released their amazing debut album. Seriously, one of my favorite albums of all time. Battlefield Bad Company, which I will now only address as Bad Company for the rest of the video, was a console-only first-person shooter made by EA DICE, the developers responsible for memorable titles such as Pinball Dreams released for the Amiga in 1992, or Diva Stars Mall Mania for the Game Boy Color. Bad Company was a single-player story with strong character development and humor. It emphasized squad-based combat but also included vehicular and large-scale warfare. Set in the near future based on the First Russian-American War in the fictional country of Serdaristan, it follows a 4-man fire team of cannon fodder from B Company of 222nd Army Battalion, otherwise known as Bad Company. The main guy is Private Preston Marlowe, who recently joined Bad Company. The rest of the crew is Private Terrence Sweetwater, who's the nervous nerdy one, Private George Gordon Haggard Jr., the pyromaniac goofball, and Sergeant Samuel D. Redford, who is the leader of the squad. Redford volunteers to babysit these losers to shorten his term of service, as he only had 3 days left before the shenanigans that take place in this game. Haggard, who, like I said, is a goofball, follows a truck of gold into Serdaristan, single-handedly invading a neutral country. The crew follows him and the military labels them all as AWOL to remove any liability upon themselves, but also asks them to keep investigating the gold since they aren't responsible if they fuck up. The US severs ties with them and makes them fight their way out after Serdaristan declares war on US. So the game follows this singular squad of 4 that's AWOL fighting off a whole damn country on their own. When DICE debuted Bad Company, they did it on the basis that it was an entirely new engine compared to their old Battlefield games. Battlefield 1942 and Battlefield Vietnam both ran off the Refractor 1 engine, with Battlefield 2 and Battlefield 2142 both running off the Refractor 2 engine. They also used an engine called Renderware for Battlefield 2 Modern Combat, but Bad Company was DICE's debut on the Frostbite engine, which after a few updates and hoots and hollers is the engine that DICE is currently using for their most recent titles. The new Frostbite engine allowed for a highly destructible environment such as blowing a hole in a house or rolling down trees in a tank. 90% of the environment was destructible, from buildings to vehicles to people to vegetation, with incredible dynamic lighting to correlate the changing environment. So after you blew a hole through the house and saw directly into the bathroom of the girl next door, the lighting from outside correctly floods into the bathroom to show you exactly what you were looking for. The Battlefield series was only 6 years old or so at the release of Bad Company, which is crazy to think about. If the Battlefield series was a human, then this year it'd be able to get its license and drive. Battlefield 1942 debuted in 2002, with Battlefield Vietnam following in 2004. Battlefield 2, the first major game with any traction for DICE, released in 2005, as well as Battlefield 2 Modern Combat. In 2006 we got Battlefield 2142, which was a futuristic warfare game set in a type of ice age. It focused on multiplayer matches mostly and was actually pretty fun, albeit underrated. And then the wonderful year of 2008, we got Bad Company, a complete spin-off from any previous games that I'm pretty sure was just DICE trying to show off the new engine without basing a major title around it. DICE has continued to make and have success with the Battlefield games, continuing on to make Battlefield 1943, Bad Company 2, which was a direct sequel to the star of today's show, and one of my favorite multiplayer shooters from back in the day. They also dropped Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, Battlefield Hardline, Battlefield 1, oddly releasing after the 4th game, and this year, in a few months, we get Battlefield 5. DICE has developed all these games entirely, so no switch up in the developers like in the Call of Duty franchise. And DICE has exclusively published under EA Games, mostly because they are just a subsidiary of EA Games. Average reviews of the time gave Bad Company a low to mid 80 score out of 100. Pretty consistent with all their previous releases of the time, except for Battlefield 2, which propelled them into the 90 scores. After looking back at good old Bad Company today, it's pretty apparent that the game stands tall. Its visual and audio productions being great for the time and still pretty decent today. The gunplay is smooth and polished, definitely a prime showcase for the Frostbite 1.0 engine, which, like I said, is the same engine they built off to produce the most recent games in the franchise, including the upcoming release of Battlefield 5. Frostbite engine in 2008 was one of the first engines, with Bad Company being one of the first games to allow for such environmental destruction and mayhem, even if it wasn't truly dynamic. It's still impressive today to blow out whole sides of houses when an enemy is peeking you from the window. The amazing high dynamic range audio is perfect and honestly great in comparison to some modern games. Gunshots, radio chatter, explosions, yelling, and general warfare destruction are all brought expertly to your ear in a way that changes whether you're running away from it or towards it, or ducking for cover in a house and hearing it all become a little more muffled. However, Bad Company doesn't feel like any modern Battlefield games, mostly because it holds your hand a bit too much and the difficulty just isn't there. There's also a lack of intensity there that you find from many other games in the series. That's mainly due to the humorous manner of the main focus that is the men of Bad Company. That wouldn't be so bad if the story was great and kept you glued through, but the story was unremarkable at best, and in hindsight it may have been a one-off game from DICE showcasing their new engine and not expecting anything to come out of it, but it was done so impressively that it became a massive success, even spawning a direct sequel to the spin-off series. The multiplayer was done well and it was fun, but it just couldn't compete with Call of Duty at the time, which was done so much better in my opinion. More modern versions of Battlefield multiplayer excel far beyond its rival games today, but Bad Company was nothing to remember considering the multiplayer. It was a good time with the destructible environment and the different class selections, but it just wasn't up to par that year. Bad Company 2 though, that was my shit online. Thanks for taking the time to watch my video. Check out my channel if you want to see more gaming focused discussions like this, and maybe subscribe if I tickled your nips today. Or like the video if you too feel like Jupiter having 69 moons is an incredibly sexy fact. Alright, peace.
Everybody let me hear you say, oh yeah.